exposed in this particular way. It's for a leader to change his or her party, to make sure the culture is right and the standards are understood by everybody within the party. That's why I've changed the Labour Party. That's why I put it to a party which says country first, party second.
He has appealed,
and leadership has to be shown.
I was completely shocked by what I read in the report. Keir Starmer has received an alarming signal from the results of the latest opinion poll, and this is really alarming. His seat was under serious threat, and the source of this threat was none other than Nigel Farage. Yes, you heard right, this scandalous politician from the Reform Party is back in the game and aimed right at Starmer. A new poll shows that support for the party has skyrocketed from 40.7% to an incredible 21%. After the general election on the 4th of July, 2024, the popularity of the Reform Party in the UK skyrocketed, and it's just amazing. Support for this party has reached 21%, and this is really incredible, considering that it was initially supported by only 14.7% of voters. While the Conservative Party is facing a real crisis, its support has collapsed to 20%, losing as much as 4%. The Labour Party, on the contrary, holds steady at 33% across the country, but even this cannot hide the growing excitement around the Reform UK. A We Think poll showed that the Conservatives' support dropped from 24.4% to a measly 20%, while Labour remains stable at 33%. This creates the feeling that the Reform Party is rapidly gaining strength and becoming a serious contender for British leadership.
Every single vote still has to be earned. We've got another 6 days to go, and it is very, very important to make the argument that if you want change, you have to vote for it. This is a big choice election because it's either 5 more years of what we've just had for 14 years, because nothing's going to change. That means the NHS won't get better. We'll still be in a sort of low growth, high tax doom loop. Or we can choose a different path and start to rebuild the country with Labour.
The loss of 38% of support is not just numbers, it is an alarming signal that cannot be ignored. This is real anxiety that makes your heart beat faster. At the same time, the Conservative Party has sunk to its historical low, and this situation creates an atmosphere of instability and uncertainty that is in the air. Nigel Farage's party is creeping up on the Tories like a predator, and this clearly indicates a sharp change in voter preferences. The sudden rise of reform advocates in the UK has become strikingly obvious and highlights the urgent need for changes in policy and governance approaches. The political arena is heating up to the limit, and no one can predict what will happen next.
After 3.5 years of deception and dishonesty, we will be leaving this prison of nations at the end of January. And we won't become a third country, as I've been hearing this morning. No, we're going to become an independent, self-governing nation. And you can delude yourselves this morning inside this cathedral that all is well, but it isn't. It isn't. People do not want to be run and governed by faceless bureaucrats like Michel and von der Leyen. Did you hear them earlier? Dull as ditch water.
Against the background of Nigel Farage's victory, the proclamation of the Independence Day of Great Britain became a truly landmark event, marking the beginning of a new era in the political life of the country. Farage noted with pride and delight that British voters had chosen the path of leaving the European Union with incredible determination. This decision was a real reflection of their deep will and desire for change. This historic moment filled people's hearts with hope and expectation, opening up new horizons and opportunities for the UK.
Politics, and I'm proud of everybody that had the courage, in the face of all the threats, everything they were told, they had the guts to stand up and do the right thing.
It was a real shock for Starmer, wasn't it? He clearly had no idea that Farage would overtake him so quickly in this intense political race. The excitement and anxiety overflowing in him suggests that the situation has become much more critical than he could have imagined. The rating of the Labour Party has collapsed to a shocking 38, according to a new YouGov poll, and this has become a real detonator in the UK political landscape. Voters, full of frustration and discontent, began to lose faith in their leader, and this seriously undermines Starmer's confidence. He feels the ground slipping away from under his feet, and this state of uncertainty is becoming more and more threatening.
So it's been an extraordinary few weeks for Reform UK. The party has rocketed up the polls since Nigel Farage announced 2 weeks ago that he was taking over as leader. Our latest polling suggests Reform can get 5 seats. That's 5 more than we were predicting at the start of the campaign, and they include places like Clacton in Essex, Boston and Skegness, another big Leave voting constituency, as well as Ashfield and 2 more. So why are voters here choosing this party? Well, Reform UK say they want to win over people from what they describe as left-behind communities. And if we look at the places where their message is cutting through, we can see that they do experience higher levels of deprivation than the rest of the country. This index here, it measures things like income, education, health and housing. And Clacton, where Nigel Farage is standing to be an MP, you can see it's the 45th most deprived constituency in the UK. And then on the opposite end, we've got places like Surrey Heath and mid-Buckinghamshire, usually Tory heartlands.
Reform UK is clearly full of ambition, especially with their decision to boldly challenge elections in disadvantaged areas of the country. But they will have to face a harsh reality in order to gain the trust of voters. They need to offer something more than just empty promises, as Starmer does. Only real actions and sincere decisions can strengthen their positions in these difficult districts. Otherwise, their efforts risk turning out to be nothing but a puff against the background of the real needs of people.
But how much does Reform have to offer people living in places like Clacton? Well, let's take a look at their biggest policy on tax. This is what Nigel Farage had to say about it at the party's manifesto launch.
But I think the most innovative policy that we've put out in here is to raise the level at which people start paying tax to £20,000 a year. That would be a good thing, of course, for those on low pay.
It really seems like a difficult task, doesn't it? However, Nigel Farage, having shown determination and perseverance, managed to win a parliamentary mandate from Clacton, focusing his attention on the financial problems that the residents of this region are so worried about. His success inspires and shows that, despite the difficulties, significant changes can be achieved if you really take care of people's needs.
Okay, so Reform UK want to raise the basic rate at which people start paying income tax to £20,000 a year, but they also want to increase the threshold at which people start paying the higher rate to £70,000 a year. And this would reverse the stealth tax that the current government has put in place by freezing those thresholds. But the way Reform UK have chosen to unfreeze the thresholds is overwhelmingly regressive. It's the highest earners who benefit the
If Starmer really knew how to win people's hearts, he wouldn't feel such overwhelming stress every time a new opponent comes on the scene. But now we see him literally freeze at the mention of the meteoric rise of Farage and his party. Farage's policy is not just a success, it is a real revolution, breaking down familiar boundaries and creating a powerful wave of support that no other party could have dreamed of in recent years. This stunning success fills Farage with incredible confidence, and he is not going to stop there. He is ready to challenge anyone and everyone, and it is this determination that makes him an even more dangerous opponent. On the other hand, what has Starmer actually achieved since his appointment as British Prime Minister? That's right, he plunged into the abyss of unpopularity, becoming one of the most hated prime ministers in history. I was deeply disappointed by Keir Starmer's actions, and probably many felt the same way. And this is not just my personal opinion, all national polls confirm his rating has collapsed since he came to power. This man is rapidly becoming one of the most unpopular leaders in a long time. People just don't take him seriously. His current rating is -13, and if you don't understand what that means, he's close to being on the level of Prince Harry. All political parties are watching his failures with bated breath, while Farage and his Reform UK party are rapidly gaining popularity. Let's be honest, Farage doesn't make mistakes in his politics, unlike Starmer. He is still loved by the people, and his support is only growing. If this goes on, Starmer risks ending up at the very bottom, while Reforms UK are rapidly overtaking Labour and all other parties in the country. This is a real political disaster, and the consequences can be devastating. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.